because Seattle is cloudy. I love it. I
Mm.
lived in Seattle for years.
I live in a small seaside town near Vancouver in BC called Gibsons, and it is really sweet today. It's sunny, there's a little bit of a breeze. If it gets a little warmer, I might go to the beach a little later and have an ocean dip. Other Pacific Northwesters I see, Oregon coast. Nice. Well, we have 102 people in the room already, Lauren.
I see more people in the waiting room.
Oh, are you able to help me let them in?
Yeah, I'm gonna let them in.
Thanks,
Hello,
Lauren.
hello, everyone who's coming in.
There we go. The floodgates have opened. Here we are.
I
Yes,
love seeing all these smiling faces. Just a note, you do not have to have your camera on if you feel like you have no skin on today, which I say for some introverts, highly sensitive people often do. That's totally fine. But we also love to see the smiling faces. So however you want to show up, it's all good.
absolutely. Yay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicole Breit. I'm an award-winning essayist and a best-selling author. I'm a writing instructor. I've been coaching writers for 10 years. And I'm the founder of the Revolution Story Lab, which is this lovely community that I've created for authors, creators, seekers, those of us who love to use writing as a tool for transformation, which can mean different things. It can mean we write to learn about ourselves, we write to heal, we write to process. Sometimes that transformation can also be future self work. I want to get published one day. I want to learn how to write well. I care about craft. So, those are all the concerns that we bring to our amazing writing collective. And Revolution Story Lab is also the online hub where I host events like this one that I get to co host today with Lauren. So, if you've joined the community, you already know there's some really cool stuff happening in the free space. We gather once a month to write together, we set weekly intentions. It's a really beautiful space to meet like minded writers in community. And for those of us who are INFs and the INFPs, it can be really meaningful to find each other. And I'm so excited by the energy that I felt when we put this idea out in the world, the emails that I've been getting, the warm response to hosting this, the excitement that people have to gather today. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm Lauren Sapala. I'm the author of the INFJ Writer, which is how Nicole found me. And we've had some deep conversations about INFP and INFJ writers. And I'm so excited that we're doing an event for INFP writers because I told her I'm always looking for help for my INFP writers. I am frequently stumped and puzzled by INFP writing problems. So I'm really excited to see what happens today. Nicole is an INFP writer and has a lot of interesting takes on how to write in a way that works for INFP writers.
Mm. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I'm very excited about our conversation too. It's been really fun for us to get ready for this conversation and to learn about each other and learn the similarities and differences and how our brains work, how we write, our processes. So I can't wait to dive in and to start. Um, so one of the things that I think is interesting is that Lauren is an INFJ writer who writes long form fiction novels, and I'm an INFP writer who works in short form, creative nonfiction. So that's one of the little nuances and differences in how we come to our work. Um, and what I hope that we all get out of today is just more information. I think with INFPs, um, there just isn't always a lot of guidance out there. And I think that's what Lauren has been saying. It's been really nice to be able to bring what I've learned about my own process and share it with others in this way. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to do that. So please feel free to use the chat to connect with each other. It's very special to have this gathering. Um, Lovely community of people. If something's resonating with you while we're speaking or while I'm presenting a little later, please use the chat. We'll be watching it. We are recording today's session, so there will be a replay. And as Lauren said, if you want to keep your camera off, totally fine. Do what makes you comfortable. Also, just acknowledging sometimes these conversations can feel really amazing when you're with your people and you feel like you can unmask and be yourself. The people in the room get you, but it can also feel really vulnerable. So if you have that sense of a vulnerability hangover after, totally normal. I'm going to check in with you tomorrow when I send out the replay. I want to hear how it all went for you today, how you're feeling, any insights or discoveries. And so with that, I think we'll begin. Actually, Lauren and I, when we met in the waiting room, were comparing notes. And we were, I don't know if this is an INFP thing that anyone can relate to, but I like wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote to prepare so that I wouldn't forget all of the things that were really important for me to share with you. And Lauren showed them how you prepared.
This was I had one sticky note, and there's two things on it. That's it. Two things. Like I was like, that's it. That's what I showed up with. And I was like, wow, you're really well prepared. And I laughed because Nicole said, I hate outlines, but I did an outline. And I said, I've heard 100 INFP writers tell me that. I hate outlines, but I did an outline.
Because there's so much I'm excited to share and I don't want to forget anything. Just want to do a really good job.
Mm-hmm. That's an INF thing. That's INFJ and INFP. I want to do a really good job, the best job that any human being has ever done on planet Earth, and nothing less.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to stand up in front of people and be visible, like it's when I was younger, that was really, really difficult for me to even be on camera, to speak out loud, to present something in front of a class. So I've had to really get myself just through practice, like getting up in front of people and speaking and being vulnerable has always been really challenging for me, just because I feel everything. So this might be actually a really good place to start with what you were saying, Lauren. INFs, what we have in common, what is different that you've noticed over your many years of coaching INF writers for the INFP. And then maybe with that sort of overview, I'll jump in and share a little bit about my own experience from inside the mind of an INFP writer.
Well, I want to say because I am keeping an eye on the chat. I think it was Christina said, I'm not even sure what INFJ or INFP is. I did the test right before I jumped on. I'm INFP, but I see myself in a lot of Lauren's YouTube videos. I know a lot of people know what they are, have known since they were 16, and some people don't. So we're using INFJ and INFP as part of the Myers-Briggs personality typing system, and each letter stands for something. So INFJ is introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. INFP is introverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving. People get really caught up on the judging and perceiving. The INFJs are like, wait, I'm not judgmental. And INFPs are like, what does perceiving mean? Exactly. It's the way you use your intuition in the world. It's the way you learn and the way you make decisions. So we are both introverted types. We go to our internal world for energy. We are also both feeling types. We're emotionally centered. Emotion comes first with us. And we have high intuition. INFJs have introverted intuition, meaning our intuition comes from our internal world, and INFPs have extroverted intuition, meaning they pick up on things in the external world. And the judging and perceiving basically means that INFJs are a bit more organized and INFPs are a bit more spontaneous in theory. However, you can see from the notes with Nicole and I, it does not always work out that way. So that's the big picture view. If you're like, wow, that really just stoked my fire and I want more, I do encourage you to Google it. There's a ton of information out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I think about everything you've shared and the what perceiving means, and you called it, I think, spontaneous. I think it's for me, I am so open to possibilities, open to what I'm receiving. I feel like I'm just this receiver. And that constant input is something that I'm always processing, but it means that I actually kind of keep things open-ended. And I think with my writing, we'll talk about Mosaic Method and how to kind of contain things. It's difficult for me to make decisions because I'm feeling into things for a long, long time. And does
Mm-hmm.
that kind of resonate with you, Lauren, for the INFP? Like just we're feeling and it's taking a long time to make, decisions in
So
life and
what
in
I,
writing.
Somebody said, I think it was Frank James. He's a YouTuber, an INFJ guy, but he said INFPs get emotionally attached to their own emotions. And I was like, wow, that's
Mm,
good. Because I've seen that with my INFPs getting emotionally attached to the emotions. And Nicole, when you and I were talking about our writing process, last week, you said, I really want people to feel things with me. And I was so struck
mhm,
by that. Like I'm feeling so strongly and the feelings are so meaningful that I want people to feel it with me. And that was so interesting because I don't have that. I want people to understand me, but I'm not so
mhm,
attached to if they feel it with me. So feeling is big for INFPs. It is their first function of the personality stack. And so it's the priority, how they feel about things. And that can be
mhm,
hard because, like you said, you want to include everything. You don't want to leave anything out, and that was
mhm,
something we talked about too, where you said, I need to contain it. I thought that was
mhm,
so interesting when you're like, I saw all this stuff and I need to contain it.
mhm. Yeah, and I need to understand how I feel. And I don't know that until I write. That's been going way back into I started journaling and writing poetry when I was about 12. I just felt like I was absorbing so much all the time that I couldn't speak about it easily. I couldn't articulate it, and so writing became the way that I could manage the feelings and move through the feelings. And now that I write with the intention to share my writing, one of the things that I emphasize the most is how do I evoke feeling? How do I use craft to um, allow other people to, have that translation of experience?
And I did want to ask you about Mosaic Method. That was one of the things on my sticky notes. It's really important because it's only
Yes.
one of two things, because you said when you read INFJ Writer, it was the Mosaic Method that really hit you, where you're like, oh, this is how I write, or this is how I need to be writing. I just didn't have the language for it. And, the name of this workshop is Writing in Fragments. Can
Hmm.
you talk a little about that, like how that has helped you contain all the stuff?
Yeah, so Mosaic Method, I was actually going to ask you, Lauren, if you had created that term or if you had heard it elsewhere, or it was your observation of how INFPs were just naturally writing, that you just needed to call it something.
I think somebody in my very first silent writing program way back 20 years ago, I think somebody said I write mosaic style. And that's where I
Okay.
picked it up from. And it kind of just was boinging around in my brain for a long time.
Hmm. Yeah, so for me, um, I was going to kind of describe what it's like to be inside the brain of an INFP like me, and maybe that's part of this discussion of Mosaic Method is all of these kind of fragmented pieces that are going on for me all the time. And then that just translates into writing. So I'm just wondering if anyone else resonates with this. You can share in the chat. I am wonderstruck, like that's the word I would call it, wonderstruck by beauty and mystery and art and nature. Um, I have described my experience of my relationship with art as I fall into paintings or I climb inside songs. I want to hear them again and again. I want to, there's almost no separation between me and the emotional experience of art. Um, I find meaning in signs, synchronicity, dreams. They're equally important to my tangible daily experience, and that finds its way into my writing. I have a mind that leaps to form connections and find patterns. My daughter often calls me random, but what that means is she said something. And my response is three leaps ahead in my brain, but she doesn't know that. So she doesn't see the connection, but it's totally obvious to me because I live in my own brain. The deep need to process, drawn to energy, to color, to sound, to feeling. That energy sparks inspiration for my writing. I remember being really young and being so fascinated with a color that I could just stare at a toy or something and just be with the color. Um, and then I think of myself as a gatherer, somebody who's like collecting impressions, collecting um, fragments, song lyrics, what the light looked like landing on the leaf that I can't forget. That all seems to belong together and is connected. And so my stories, like mirror that experience of everything being connected. I don't think in linear time, and I don't think memory is linear either. So for me, when I write, to the idea of like starting at the beginning and moving through the middle and going to the end makes no sense to me because I don't know where anything begins. It's all just sort of interrelated. And that's why I need structure. Um, but I also wanted to say something that you mentioned in the INFP writer was how driven, passionate, intense, and high achieving INFPs are, and that can be self-critical. Like it can lead to that self-criticism and perfectionism because we want everything to be good. I think we want to stand among artists because we're so moved by beauty and art that to be able to create and then share is so important to us. And I think that leads to some of the issues that we have with being able to start and finish. So now that I've kind of painted all of that, that's what it looks like inside here. Mosaic Method is something that I learned when I took a course on something called the lyric essay. I was interested in writing memoir. And I was kind of mind blown by the possibility that I could write an essay in sections and then decide after which order they came in. And that meant everything in my brain actually belonged. It could actually fit inside. I could write I could write my inspiration from this song lyric and I could write the dream and then I could write the happening and they could just coexist in this associated form. And I'm going to show you some examples. I know this might sound a little abstract, but Laura and I were also talking about how y'all make leaps really easily. So I don't have to be super linear in how I describe things. But once I discovered that I had permission, I could write in a way that mirrored the map inside my brain, it changed everything for me. It just made it all easier. So, Mosaic is what it sounds like. The story isn't following a traditional narrative arc, it is made of fragments and pieces that form an impression. And when you kind of take this collage like approach to putting the pieces together, piecework, that is a legitimate way to tell a story. And it rings so true and it's so much easier than trying to force our brains to work in a way that just doesn't align with how we think and process and remember.
I love that. And you know, Nicole, I want to say I have an INFP writer friend. She describes herself as a magpie because
Mm.
like you said, I have to remember how the light looked on that leaf. And it sounds like, I have never done the lyric essay exercise before. Full disclosure. I'm going to do it with you guys all today. How does that work? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about it? I'm just like a total newbie at it.
I have a little slideshow for you where I will go into the lyric essay a little bit more, but it really is, let me back it up. Mosaic Method is the process, but it doesn't work without containment. And so that's where the lyric essay is about imposing a structure that will hold the fragments. And so this is going to lead into a conversation about the importance of creative constraints for an INFP mind, where we can write and write and write, and there's more and more and more, and we don't really know where it all goes. We just know intuitively it's all connected for us. In order to write a lyric essay, you do need to decide. It works for me to decide up front what the constraints are, how many sections I'm going to write, how many words, for how long. Those constraints help me make sure that I will actually finish something. But Lauren, I'm thinking about how you described what one of your friends or clients described about how she felt like her process was making a cake on the floor without a bowl.
Hmm.
She had all the ingredients, but it's just making a mess. I think of the lyric essay as the bowl that's going to hold all the ingredients that are the fragments I've been gathering to put into a mosaic of some kind.
Hmm.
So
She was my very first INFP writer friend. And when I was writing that book, the INFJ writer, I was looking for people to interview. I didn't know very many. I hadn't been coaching that long. I wasn't teaching classes, and I knew she was an INFP writer. She said, it's like making a cake on the floor without a bowl. I was like, that's great.
perfect. It's perfect. And I think about how many years that I spent because I love writing, and my initial instinct is to write long form. There's always more to feel, and there's always more to process, and it never would add up to anything. And then if I looked at all the pages I'd produced, there was no dopamine hit at all in trying to read it back and figure out how to shape it into something. I've already lost the energy. So working in a different way in Mosaic Method, but having the container there set up first helped me right toward where I felt the energy spark, and then shape almost like vignette style and then organize it later, or have some overarching structure that was gonna, hold the batter. Yeah.
I'm
And
excited to see how this goes. You know what? I'm excited to see what your writing process map looks like now as you're saying all this.
oh yeah, so Lauren and I did something really fun when we were chatting last week. I had the idea that maybe we could each, because we were talking about our process and we're trying to find similarities and differences, and we both described our processes like a puzzle, like putting puzzle pieces together. But when Lauren was verbalizing we there was a distinction or a difference. And so I thought, let's just map it. Like, let's just surprise each other on Monday. We'll each draw a picture of our own process, and then we'll show up and talk about what it looks like. So should we do that? Should we go there now?
Yeah, if you want, you can show it if you want. Yeah.
Okay,
Nicole has seen mine. I have not seen hers. I will
that's
say
right.
so. So
That's
you are
right.
not surprised any longer, but I'm going to be surprised.
Yes. So yeah, if that sounds good, maybe I'll share my screen. We'll look at and describe our processes, and then we'll move into learning about the lyric essay. And I just want to say up front, I'm a creative nonfiction writer. I'm drawn to memoir. It's what I love to teach and write and read. But I do think that there's something in Mosaic Method for poets and also for fiction writers. I think it works really well in short form, particularly, but I don't think that there's anything here that wouldn't work long form. And in fact, the writing that I have done, like I said, that I was a gatherer or a collector, I really think of Mosaic Memoir as a collection, or writing essays into a collection, or writing short pieces into a collection. You can build a whole book this way, working in really short fragments once you figure out how they fit together. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen. Um, it is probably not going to land on the right thing right away. Okay. Lauren, do you see my
I do.
very pretty?
Oh, I do. Oh, I
There
do.
we there we are together. INFP mind and Mosaic Method.
That's
Okay,
us,
that's
everyone.
us. Is everyone ready for Lauren's process? I am. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
There
so
it is.
so this is my so okay, I got these symbols from a business book I was reading on flowcharts, which is a very exciting book. But I was like, oh, I could use these symbols for myself. So you're like, well, what does all this mean? This just looks like a bunch of squares and diamonds. So the green star is the beginning. That's the beginning of the story. And the
Mm.
red star is the end of the story. And I need to get from the green star, go, to the red star, stop. So when that green star lands in my body, in my mind, I'm like, it's time to go. And I need to keep going and make my way across the terrain until I feel that red star land in my body. And that means stop. We're done. We've written the story. The yellow squares, those are fragments that come in for me, and they're pretty self-contained and they're pretty whole. It's like, oh, this is the conversation they have on the cliff as the sun is setting, where she tells him she's leaving him. That would be a gold square. Oh, here is the scene where her mother has given away her dog while she was at school. That's a gold square, right? So it's often a scene, but not always a scene, but it's a part of the story. And it's a part of the story that lights up, that square lights up and glows for me when it's time to be written, and it is contained. And then these diamonds, these are choice points. Well, after she gives away the dog, she could either run away from home, she either runs away from home or she doesn't. I don't know yet. So my job is to figure out where these glowing story points connect to the diamond decision points. And I need to put them all together so that they form one shape. That's how my mind works. So you can see it's a lot of pieces, but each piece is self-contained. And that's where I think when Nicole and I were talking, we found that one of the differences where fragments are coming in for both of us, but my fragments seem to be much more self-contained and really not necessarily connected to each other. And then I need to
Mm.
connect them up. Whereas Nicole, you were saying, well, everything is connected, and there are so many connections. It's even hard to figure out where anything goes or anything. So this is
Yeah.
my process. I'm excited to see yours.
I love this, and this makes it so much more clear what you were describing about the containment because I my process is a mess. It might make you giggle when you see it. But now what I'm understanding is that I need something like the lyric essay so that I can contain what is naturally contained for you because of the way you see it.
Hmm.
So probably
Hmm.
this won't surprise you. This is sort of like me with a pile of notes and Lauren with one sticky. She's very organized in how she's just like described this. That's mine.
Uh, I
It
love the
might
difference.
it might be that I have a great big idea, or it might be a small spark. That's the energy. Oh, there's a song lyric. There's a book I once read on astronomy. There's a random overheard conversation on the ferry. Oh, that ache and longing I was born with. That's part of it. An echo of other times I felt that way. Obsessive research. There's the rabbit hole. I went for a walk and saw two starlings, and I know it means something. Hopes and fears, past, present, future daydreams, my son's blue eyes, their depth. Oh, this needs healing. Like, and it's all all together. And the arrows pointing outward means there is always more. There is still more. And so if your brain works this way, where it sort of intuits the connections, this is why we need a bowl. This is why
So
we need a bowl.
this is so interesting because INFPs have extroverted intuition, and then we see these arrows literally going outward. The INFP intuition is always going outward. It's always exploring the world. Like you said, oh, I saw two starlings on my walk and I know it means something. INFJs have that a bit, but we're much more turned inward with the intuition. And so like you can
Mm,
see my map was like it is like in a bucket. It's in a bucket and then there's pieces in a bucket. It's not
yeah.
like lots of arrows shooting out. So I think we're really seeing the difference in the intuition there.
That's really an interesting observation. And it's interesting too, because when you're mapping out your process, you are working long form. Like you're taking, correct, right? You're taking, oh,
Hmm.
I need to create a scene here, or I'm taking, my readers on a journey. And um, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing until the mosaic starts being moved into place and the pieces start moving into place. So it's very different. It's very different. The way that we're working and also the genre that we're working in and what that requires. So very
Hmm.
interesting.
I just want to read. Rose says those little things like the echo of other times I felt this way, hard to fit into writing always, but so important to me. I don't think you're the
Mm,
only one, Rose. I think, and if you're an IFP, if that resonates with you, put that in the chat. If you've got that feeling of echo of other times I felt this way, and it's so important, but it's so hard to get it in because I think that's a big thing for a lot of INFP writers.
The exercise that we're going to do today, we're going to write a triptych essay in three parts, would be a really beautiful form for exploring an echo of other times I felt this way. And I'll come back to that. Because if it feels difficult, this might be a way in. Once you learn that you have permission to explore in a certain way and try that mosaic arrangement. Anything else in the chat? Anyone else? I'm just gonna.
Rose is saying, and Nicole, I wonder, do you often find that so many of the pieces require a bunch of extra research for you?
Sometimes I try, it really depends on the project and the story that's taking shape. I used to be very, very concerned with factual accuracy, wanting to include research. Like, for example, if I was writing about a certain time and place, I needed to know what the number one song on the radio was, or, like to bring myself and re-immerse, but also get it right. And I've kind of eased off that a little bit. I'm much more about trusting the images that come up for me and not feeling like I have to prove, prove that I'm creating something that's factually true. I think when I started writing creative nonfiction, it was really emphasized that we are telling the truth about our lives. And so it must be true. And now I'm much more, well, what is the truth? What's the emotional truth? Which maybe goes
Hmm.
back to being an INFP and how we feel and how important that is. The feeling is most important.
I also I'm seeing Mark is asking, do the colors mean anything, or was it just the closest marker?
Closest marker, and I just grabbed how I felt. What I felt was right. I didn't choose with intention or have a key. I just knew that the great big idea had to be yellow, like gold or yellow, and then the small spark had to be kind of flame colored too, and then the rest was just what was in my pen holder.
And then I just want to read from Tom says, my process isn't half as organized as this. I start with a paragraph, reread it, and realize I need to say more. Then I see that to explain one part of what I wrote, I write something to further the story, repeat and repeat, add flashes of inspiration that occur randomly, and then build those in. And then Amy says, the 10-year paragraph is no stranger to me. I love that.
I love that. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit too, Lauren, about how I think when we were talking, you described your process kind of like a skeleton, and that you had
Hmm.
to expand. You were also a writer who felt like you had to expand, whereas I feel like I have to scale down.
Mm-hmm. It's I whenever I write a novel, I'm like, man, there's only three people in this whole story. Like I need, maybe I should put some more people in. It's very minimalist. It's
Mm-hmm.
very minimalist.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to move us on into talking about the lyric essay, what its potential is. We're going to do some guided writing together today. So let's move into that. So the lyric essay is a creative nonfiction form written in sections. It's also called the segmented essay, and then arranged in the order that best serves the story. In other words, Mosaic Method. So lyric essays come in all kinds of shapes and there's so many variations as well. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what this can actually look like, a fragmented piece of collected collected moments. I'm going to show you that we can write uh, an essay in the form of a list, a collage, a braid with 2 or 3 woven strands. And if there is anyone in the room who isn't familiar with creative nonfiction, I'll just give you my definition of it. So, creative nonfiction is a literary genre that borrows stylistic elements from poetry and fiction to illuminate the factual and emotional truth of an experience. So, real stories about real people, otherwise known as short form memoir, micro memoir, the personal essay. And in the Revolution Story Lab, the community you're in, I teach 10 short form variations on the lyric essay because I love it so much. And today we're going to write a 3-part essay together inspired by triptych paintings. As you know, I'm a lover of all art forms, and the idea of writing something, writing a story inspired by a type of painting really got me excited when I first learned about it. So first I'm going to show you the example of how you can write an essay in the form of a list. And by the way, if you're interested in reading more than these excerpts, if you Google the title of these pieces, you can read them in full. So just a good metaphor for something, Nicole Breit. It'll come up. All of these are published online. So here I can tell you a little bit more about my process. I often use mind mapping. So I begin with an idea or something that I want to write, and then I create all of those visual spokes with all of those associations that look very messy in my process. And I find a way to put them together in some kind of format. And so the list essay here literally is lines, fragments, um, moments, memories, sometimes a quote, a little tiny micro scene. And as to containment, because I can write and write and write, one of the ways that I create that structure that is meaningful for these kinds of essays, I decide on a number. And so for this essay, it has 35 points. I could not have more. I wrote more than that. But one of the reasons the number 35 was significant was because this piece was about a relationship that didn't become romantic because my friend said that he still wanted to be friends with me when we were 40. And so initially I thought, oh, this should be 40 points long. But as I began to write, I remembered that the last time I saw him, I was 35. And so it could only be 35 points. You know, when you read the essay that 40 is the future, the hoped for future, that we'd still be connected, but we didn't make it. And so I took the little fragments and pieces, rearranged them, moved them around. I like guiding writers to begin with a question. It's another way of kind of creating some kind of arc or shape. And so this piece, number one, starts with a question: how could you abort the mission without all the necessary info? And that kind of guides the piece through these little pivots and emotional shifts up until point 35. And by the way, I would love to see fiction writers experimenting with these forms. It's something you'll find fairly easily if you're looking into different forms of creative nonfiction, but I would love to see this as prose poems. I would love to see this in short form fiction as well. So this second collage essay example is called Spectrum. And so this was one of the first lyric essays that I ever wrote. And the challenge was to try and write about what it meant to me to create a rainbow family. My wife and I had 2 young children. And so I decided that I was going to try to write this based on the colors of the rainbow. And so it could only be 7 sections, and each section was named after a color. And so you can see on the right-hand side how this worked structurally. I contained the memories and moments based on colors. And so this is very much nonlinear. And this is also a very INFP way of moving through the world, and like time not really being chronological. It's not the way that I think and connect things. So it allowed me to drop different memories based on color into these sections. And it became really fun to play with. And this one was the first essay that I ever won a literary award for. And I really believe it was because it looked so different. It stood out to have like a red colored font for the word red. And also, I don't remember exactly what the word count limit was for this, but I think I was over, but I kept to a really tight word count for each section. And that was how I contained it. I knew it was going to be 7 sections. I knew the structure was based on color, really poetic, and then make sure that every section was about the same length of words. And that meant I had to make choices about what belonged, how I described it. And just one more thing, because I could talk about this all day. I love teaching. If you're wondering how you can just create a collage and put it on the page and for it to be some kind of a story and not just a bunch of vignettes, I made sure that every section started with a feeling and ended somewhere else, so that there's constantly pivots and movement between the sections and from the very beginning of the essay to the end. If you're working this way and you're not working with chronological time, you need some sense of movement. What makes that very simple is just to remember that you are going to be in a different place emotionally by the end of the piece than at the beginning. And that's all you need to know. You don't have to worry about anything more than that when you're working with Mosaic Method. I'm just going to take a little sip. And I'm going to show you a braided essay example. So the idea with a braided essay is you have 2 or 3 strands that are woven together. You alternate sections, but ultimately you could take those sections apart, and they would each tell their own story in some way. So this is called an atmospheric pressure. This is one of my proudest pieces. It was kind of my breakthrough piece. I needed to find a way to write about a traumatic event that happened in my teen years where I lost a dear friend who was my first love. And I didn't know how to write about it. I could not write about it chronologically. I felt very detached, and also it was too thinky, as I've been continuing to circle back to. The emotional experience of a piece is what gives me satisfaction to write, and to know that I'm sharing something um, that feels really true to me, true to my experience. And so I had a whole bunch of memories that I didn't really know what to do with, but I also had a lot of memory gaps, which I think is pretty common with difficult, unprocessed experiences, trauma. So I just wrote these tiny little micro scenes, made sure there was a little pivot in each one, a little shift. And then I just kept messing around with the order. And eventually I just landed on this idea that the very last chronological scene would start the piece. I'm leaving the funeral home. And then I would mix up time. So the very first moment that you see the boy that we lose in the story is the next section. So we're alternating backward and forward in time, and it creates this loop, which is really very much true to the experience of grief, of returning again and again to the events, trying to make sense of them. So one of the one of the one of my friends who happened to work at the literary magazine that selected this one called it a mixed time lapse essay, and I really like that idea.
Well, I just want to
Um,
jump in here too, Nicole, and say I love what you said about memory gaps because I've worked with
mm,
so many memoir writers who say, but I can't remember everything. Like I literally
yeah.
have big chunks that are missing, and I'm really worried about that. So it looks
Mm.
like this could be a great way to work with that if that's something you're dealing with. And also I want to say Amy has a question, is a braid three stories?
A braid could be three stories that somehow connect thematically, but they could also just be three separate strands or threads that connect to an idea. You could have, for example, a story that is about grief, and you could have a researched thread and then a personal narrative alongside it, and keep alternating back and forth between the two. And then somehow by the end you bring the two pieces together, and that gives the piece a feeling of completion. But I can imagine you also doing it with three separate stories. There would need to be something that linked them. And so I think if you were writing on a theme like belonging or identity or something like that, you could have stories that belonged together because there was some kind of connection the reader would make. But yeah, absolutely. I was going to say too, Lauren, that I don't know if this is if the other INFPs in the room will relate to this, but just like when I'm making leaps in my brain and I really don't have the energy to explain them, I don't want to do that in my writing. I just want to write the parts that excite me, the little sparks, the little scenes, and then let the reader do the work of making the connections. And I think that with the lyric essay, that's entirely possible. You don't have to write the boring AF part of connecting the ideas or starting with the beginning and then walking people through, and the pieces just exist as fragments on their own, and they make their own sense based on how you've arranged them.
I love that. I mean, I'm assuming that's music to these INFPs' ears. I hear that so much. They're like, I just get so bored with the like editing and
Yes,
connecting and I don't want to do it. So there's
totally.
hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Totally. I was wondering too if when you said that editing, you were telling me that editing is one of the least favorite parts for your INFP writers. And I
That's
wonder
what
if
I've heard.
that's, yeah, I
I've heard
wonder
that
if,
a lot from INFPs. They're like, I lose all magic. I lose all momentum with editing. I just get so bored. It feels tedious. I don't like some, like you said, they like to refine. Like I
yeah,
like
I think,
refining things and making it beautiful, but the actual
mhm.
like, oh, something's like there's like a section missing here and I need to like build this bridge and put it in.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering if that might be connected too with overwriting because there isn't any containment. And then it just looks like I was
Mm.
describing, where you have pages and pages and pages and no focus. So when we're working with these smaller forms and tighter structures, you were forced to narrow your focus at the beginning, which means you'll have less editing to do later.
Mm-hmm.
So I think short form, I think that's why it works so well for me in these really structured pieces, which become really fun to play with. Like there's a playful experimental element to this that, like the different colors of the rainbow and what becomes possible when you um
Oh, and I want to read this. Carmen says, this is also cool. I have a complex arrangement of a memoir that I don't want to continue with because it's so much. These helpful structures are lighting up my brain. I love it.
Yay, yay. Well, you could absolutely keep going with that memoir length project and just write these small pieces that are linked somehow and just take them one at a time and try not to think of the whole thing at once because that's how I get overwhelmed and I won't write. If I feel overwhelmed, which is all the time, I'm not going to want to, I feel like I have book size ideas all the time, but I don't have the energy. And if I think about it as a whole, I get freaked out. But if I think about it in the small moments, in the small scenes, in the small fragments, and they make their own sense, they make their own little piece, then I can write a whole bunch of them and then just bring them together into a book. And that's what a mosaic memoir is. So, yeah, hopefully that inspires you and gets you excited. So I would love to guide us through a triptych essay prompt, and I just wanted to give a little history here to what that means. Um, so triptych is originally from the Greek word triptykos, meaning three folds. The triptych became popular with visual artists in the Middle Ages. You might have seen paintings that are done in three separate panels and then fold together on hinges. They were usually devotional paintings that describe biblical images, and the artist put them on hinges so that they could be folded up and taken when the people doing the devotions were traveling. So, like the artist presenting three separate panels as a singular work, the writer crafts three distinct yet related narratives that form a cohesive whole. That's what we're talking about. This is basically a description of Mosaic Method. This fragmented format can help writers generate new ideas, practice an unconventional structure, or create a scaffolding for a difficult topic. And I just want to say here, too, about difficult topics. The lyric essay is great for writers who are INFPs, but it's really great for anyone who's writing into trauma or writing into difficult material because short form means we can get in and out quickly. We don't have to feel like we're in it. Again, the gaps that we can leave out, there's often a lot of power in the gaps. And I'm very much about how to do this work as a memoir writer in ways that feel safe and trauma informed. And I think just knowing you don't have to write to the pain, you can write about the impact in these smaller fragments, I think is really helpful. One more quote from Theo Pauline Nestor, whose book Writing is My Drink was one of the first craft books that I ever really loved and kept with me. She was the one who really got me into the triptych. She said, instead of beginning with a story you want to tell, you start with an idea or a feeling. You isolate a concept or theme, and when hung together, they would tell a story larger than the sum of its parts. The magic of the triptych sprung from the empty spaces between the scenes, negative spaces that seem to whisper their own quiet message. I get a little chill when I think about that. I'm going to just show you an example of a modern triptych in photographs. And so this is Nicholas Grundy's fractured triptych. And so you can see the idea of how these are distinct photographs, but they are all hung together and they're all joined or unified by this idea of fractured. So this is how we're going to work today. You could move these pieces around. I think it makes sense that visually that the one with the darkest tone is in the middle, but just conceptually, you could see how you could write three distinct fragments and then have the choice to move them in any order later. So here's how we're going to use creative constraints to avoid the overwhelm and have fun today. We're going to start with a defined story structure, the three-part triptych. We're going to limit ourselves to choosing just one memory to explore in each panel. We're going to write to a time limit for each section, and we're going to have fun by practicing writing each section in a different point of view. So here we go. Our theme for this is beauty, and I'm going to ask you to begin with a little pre-writing, just listing 3 moments from any time in your life when you felt profoundly moved by beauty. And because I know you're INFPs, this happens a lot where you're profoundly moved by beauty. So just write 3. And then when you've got your 3, don't overthink it. Just choose one that excites you to write about. We're going to translate this memory into a scene. Trust the images, the phrases, the links, the leaps, just follow the energy. And I'm going to invite you to write this in third person point of view. I know that's not usually what we think of when we write about our lives. And of course, if you want to do this as fiction, maybe you're working on a project and you just want to experiment with a character's relationship to a moment where they were moved by beauty, go for it. But write this as she, he, or they. And we're going to write for 7 minutes. Feel free to share a line or two of what comes up in the chat. I'm going to set a timer now, and I'll let you know when the time is up, and we'll go on to the next. 2 more minutes and then we'll come back. Wrap up your last sentence wherever you are is perfect. You can always come back. Invite you to do a little wiggle or a stretch. We've been sitting here together for a while. So if you need to just stretch it out before you write again, take a deep breath. I do have our next panel instructions up. I want you to start this time by listing 3 moments from any time in your life when you created something beautiful. Choose 1 moment that excites you to write about. Again, we're going to translate this memory into a scene. Trust whatever comes up, just follow the energy. And this time I'm going to invite you to write it in second person point of view, so direct address, the you voice. And we'll write for 7 minutes again. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know in the chat if you need anything else. And I'll let you know when we're getting close to time being up. 2 more minutes. All right, 30 more seconds. Get ready to wrap up your last sentence and come back. I know some of you are having a hard time hearing me, so I'll try to speak a little louder. And I apologize if you can hear my laptop. It sounds like it's a rocket that's getting ready to launch right now. I don't know why. If you're picking that up, I'm sorry. So our last panel, triptych theme is beauty, panel 3, 3 moments from any time in your life when you felt the beauty of a deep connection. It can be with another person, with a very special animal. It can be a feeling of oneness. It can be that deep relationship with art or music that I talked about earlier, just a sense of that beauty of connection. One moment that excites you, translate it into a scene, following the energy. This time we're going to do it in first person point of view, and then we'll come back. Few more minutes. And when you're ready, come back, finish off that last few lines, last sentence. You can always come back. I wanted to just share a couple of ideas now that you've got this draft in progress. You may be wondering, what do I do next? I've got these three pieces. What I was saying earlier about how you make a narrative arc work or some kind of sense of movement or change is to ask yourself, how can you create a small shift or pivot in each panel? How can we end somewhere different at the end than we began in the beginning? You might try revising with that idea. You could also reflect on the impact of the moment of beauty you described. How did your experience change you in some small way? And then it's just playing with the arrangement of the panels in the order that feels right to you. This is kind of an energetic, intuitive decision, maybe. What order you wrote them in isn't necessarily the order that best serves the story. There is no right or wrong way to do this. It's just an experiment. So, encouraging you to trust your instincts. And I hope you'll keep playing with it. And if you enjoyed it, I would love to hear and love to hear how it continues to go too. This is the part where we get to share. We have a little bit of time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see all of your beautiful faces again.
I just want to say, Nicole, wow, that was amazing. Like when I started, I was like, I kind of feel like I'm writing with my left hand. Like
Mm,
I'm right-handed, but I was like, this feels different. I don't know. And by the end, I was like, oh, I'm just going. I'm going, So it really helped to open up a lot. And I'm wondering if any of you felt that way and put that in the chat if like you started out and it was kind of slow and you were like, I don't know. And then by the end you were like, oh, I'm going and going. I felt like that was a really lovely way to uncover things, like surprising
mm.
things came to light where I was like, oh, I started just kind of uncovering things where I was like, I didn't even know that was there. Is
That's
that
what I
part
hear
does
all
that
the
happen for people?
time. That's what I hear all the time when we work this way is the surprises that come up. There's some guidance, I've guided you to narrow your focus and contain it. Um, but yeah, there's always stuff that comes up that's a surprise or a discovery or a connection as you continue to write these panels.
Well, and if anyone wants to share, I mean, are you okay with people sharing on camera
Absolutely.
or you can put it also in the chat. I know we have a lot, maybe all introverts, and we might all be introverts to a person here. So feel free to copy and paste stuff in the chat as well. Diana says, yes, a slow start and then going and going, so free flowing.
That's the
Shannon,
best feeling. The best feeling is
yeah.
the free flowing.
Oh, Suzanne says, I found that the first 7 minutes was too short. and the last
Mhm.
too long, as if I was blocked when starting, but flowing like a waterfall at the end.
Beautiful.
Uh, Carmen says it was awesome. I really do have all these tiny, impactful moments, memories. I love it. And should people just raise their hand if they want to share on camera?
Sure.
Do we have any brave souls? I won't be surprised if we don't, but we might have a brave
Yeah.
soul.
And it's totally fine. Like, share a bit about how it felt, the process. If you don't feel comfortable reading what you've just written, I know that's very vulnerable to do that. Feel free to, drop one or two lines that feel like they have energy in the chat. That would be super lovely. But yeah, would also just love to hear if any discoveries came up in the process.
Amy says, I kind of love what was written in each section and realize it's emotional overwhelm that can keep me from completing pieces sometimes.
Mhm.
Mm. Oh, I think Bob is raising his hand.
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Hello
Hey
again. I saw
everybody.
you earlier.
I know. It's my lucky day. Two
Oh,
Nicoles in one day. Yeah, I just wanted, I'm not going to read anything, but I was surprised to notice in about the middle of the third one uh, a thread that I didn't plan on at all, and it's just like, oh yes, this is there. It's all about being an outsider and being being a part of something, but always feeling a little bit different. And three completely different scenes and locations and places and well, could be times, but how they all kind of came together and how the first one was about icebergs and being in the Antarctic. And then we ended up at then we end up at a Chapel Roan concert. And just the whole idea of the water and then the sea of people. And I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm making connections I didn't even think I was thinking about.
oh my
So it's fun.
gosh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I got the shivers there. And it's so interesting. You're writing about beauty, but then what emerged was this feeling of being an outsider. And those things yeah, they can come up and surprise us. And that, to me, that's part of the joy and what makes this so interesting a process to me is that there's stuff going on under the surface that comes up in the writing. And then we know ourselves better. And that's huge. Like, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Bob. Tam, hello. So good to see you here. Oh my gosh.
Hey there. I'm so sorry I
Hi.
didn't connect in Canada. Um, I've been away for a month and haven't really talked to anyone. So I'm going to jump in here, even though I am
Great.
an INFP T, the turbulent part I didn't know about. Just found that out recently. So I just wanted to share a small piece of the first one because I thought it would be fun.
Beautiful.
1 month away from home, her fabrics, her pottery, her power. Contained within these walls, her poetry lies, waiting for her to come back and recite the lyrics and reignite the place that was held silent while she was away. Olive green and mint and kanta cloths. Sounds of Mrs. Wong watering her plants and talking in Taiwanese to an unfaced image. She's on her phone, but the sound does not drone, sprinkled with leaves cheering as they are fed with her joy.
Oh my gosh, so gorgeous. And
It
I
just feels
love,
good to be home.
yeah, the sensory description you have in there was so evocative. It was just really lovely to hear you read too. Thank you
Thanks,
for
honey.
sharing. What a gift.
For letting me and for being a part of this. It was really wonderful.
My pleasure. Hello, Liesel. So good to see you.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
I would love to just read two paragraphs. The year I turned 15, we moved from South Africa to New Canaan, Connecticut, where we lived for 18 months. So the window above my bed in the house in New Canaan, my upstairs room, a winter longer than any I'd ever known. The moon rises, and because we have no curtains, I watch it through the skeletal branches of the elm growing outside my window. I listen to records on a record player. This is the year I find the flute, my first love. I find practicing. I find sound and a teacher who explains sonority and how to make it happen. I play the Prokofiev flute sonata. I try sheet music and start practicing. I buy sheet music and start practicing. I buy a record of Jean-Pierre Rampal playing it, and then I hear him play the poulenc. It is a love affair that expresses all the bliss and hope that I've been yearning for since forever.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's gorgeous. The skeletal echoes of the elms outside my window. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else care to share? We have a couple more minutes together.
Oh, I think Kelly has a hand up. Can you see
Oh,
Kelly
sure.
Turner?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. This actually was something that happened to me when I first started out as an archaeologist, and it just kind of stuck with me. Um, and so this is what I came up with. I'd been walking all day, and the car wasn't that far away. My boss trudged along a short distance ahead of me. Neither of us spoke. The wind had started to come up as the sun began its final slide down toward the horizon, filling the world with a rich gold, the same color as the sunburned wheat we were wading through. The only sounds were the wind and the crunch of our feet. Suddenly overhead, a small flock of Canada geese paused in their rush south, their tired honks and squawks drifting into silence as they spiraled over our heads. They rested in their spirals, flapping only enough to keep them aloft. I stopped in my tracks as they swirled above my head, and I stared upward, lost in the flashing of their snowy white bellies and radiating gold of the sunset. The colors merged into an ice cream swirl of decadence that danced the way only a rare beauty in nature can. Unaware, I let my mouth fall open as a sense of wonder and complete joy filled me with something I hadn't realized I was missing and wasn't sure how to fill again. A loud honk signaled the end of the resting spiral, and the geese flowed back into their traveling V and hurried on in their winter's rush south.
Wow. Lauren, I don't know about you, but I am always stunned by what people write. They just draft it and it's alive when we do this kind of writing together. Like, that was
I
stunning.
know, the ice cream swirl got me. I
Mm-hmm.
love how the clearest images come out. I think when we're not planning, when we you said just it really worked for me, just like focus on this one moment and follow the energy. And these clear images come through. Kelly, that was beautiful. I
Thank
felt like
you.
I was with you, and those moments where like your mouth does fall open, you're like, I'm wonderstruck. I love that.
Wonderstruck. Wonderstruck.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It like I said, it stuck with me, and that happened to me probably 30 years ago. But it's
Wow.
an image I've never lost.
That's so beautiful. And that's another reason why I love this writing so much is we have this memory bank and these deep impressions that are so gorgeous to revisit in our writing. We're getting really close to 90 minutes. I can't believe it has flown by. I
I'm wondering if anyone had obviously we all had surprising things, but did anyone make any connections? Like maybe revisited a past memory and saw something you didn't see before, or had an insight about why something happened or what somebody meant. That was something that happened to me that I really wasn't expecting. I revisited an interaction with a friend, and as I was writing about it, I was like, oh, this is part of a larger pattern that I didn't really consciously see. And
Mhm.
now I do. And I don't think I would have ever gotten to that. It was actually writing in the second person, which I never do. I never
Mhm.
write in the second person. And then I started and I was like, this is intense, but I'm going with it. And it really uncovered some stuff. So that's purely my own curiosity. Did anybody have an experience like that where you got some kind of information where you were like, oh, it all makes sense now? I'm looking at the chat.
Oh, Carol has her hand up. Hey, Carol.
Hi.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Again, I follow your writing instructions and find it's like you teach like dig here, treasure. But I will say the whole prompt of beauty was, I write about a traumatic past, so writing beauty really had something to give me, and I didn't notice it, Lauren, until I got to the end. And I went, oh my God, these three moments, it kind of gives me goosebumps. All were hard won. They all came over time. Like I hadn't realized that maybe I wasn't even able to take in beauty, for a big part of my life. And then in writing these three pieces, I look back at it and go, oh, that is the connection. It is, I found this, like Bob was saying, the sea. He could see the water and then the sea of people. I felt for me, it was this feeling of time, of decades of time, and then going, oh, look what I've harvested. I've harvested beauty. And I wouldn't have thought that if I hadn't written this. So thank you.
That's so interesting, Carol, that you said I don't think I could have like received the beauty when I was in the moment or younger. And I think that's happened to me. I'm seeing now, like in the moment, I don't know that I was able to really receive everything the moment had to give. But now doing this exercise, it reminds me of Anais Nin that I write to taste life twice. And I was like, oh, I think I finally just understand that quote right now. Like I thought I understood it for, 30 years. This exercise, I was like, oh, I get it. I'm receiving things from those moments. I couldn't before. Yeah, it's so interesting. Nicole, thank you so much for this.
I am so happy that we got to do this together today. I'm so honored for everyone who came and stayed all the way to the end to do this with us and to hear your sharing. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. And thanks, Lauren, for doing this with me. I had so much fun. So much fun to do something with you.
Well, I'm really, really excited that finally an event for the INFP writers has happened because as I said to you, like I really do my best to help the INFP writers, but I just don't feel like I can get all the way there. Even doing this exercise, I was like, oh, is this what it's like to be an INFP writer? This is very different. This is not how I do things. This is not how my process works. So that's why I said it's kind of like writing with my left hand. So I'm really glad we could come together and create something designed specifically for INFP writers.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'm just so excited that we have a few little things that we can share with our INFPs here today. Lauren, you have a special gift I'm going to send out tomorrow with the replay. Do you want to share a little bit about it?
Oh, yeah. So it's a copy of my ebook, Writing on the Intuitive Side of the Brain, which is about the intuitive writing method I use, which is maybe now I'm thinking an INFJ intuitive writing method, but I do think there's a lot in there for INFPs as well. I am seeing now there are all sorts of different ways you can do an intuitive writing process. I think what matters is that you just do one of them that's intuitive. And that doesn't mean you have to stick to that, but instead of trying to stick with a rational, linear, I have to have a plan, I have to have an outline, which I've heard from so many INFJs and INFPs, this is stifling to me. It's no fun. I don't like it. So, writing on the intuitive side of the brain, it's all about tapping into your intuition using an intuitive writing process.
I love it. I can't wait to read it. I got a lot out of your INFJ writer as well. I just was like so floored by the chapter on INFP. So I know this is going to be great for everyone in the room. I am so inspired by today, and I've been thinking it's time for me to plan something a little more juicy for the INFPs. So, just giving everyone a heads up, we'll stay connected. I'm planning to do something really special at the end of September, week of the 21st, a 5-day deep dive where we're going to keep playing with Mosaic Method. Would love to have you there. It's going to be a low cost thing, but it's going to be free to everyone in the room here today and to my revolutionaries who are already members of the Revolution Story Lab. So for now, if you came here today and you created your account, to be in the free space of the Revolution Story Lab. You're already getting the goodness of all the connections that we're making with like-minded, intuitive, sensitive writers. I hope you'll stay to do some of the fun stuff we do together every month. And you'll be hearing from me soon. I'm going to be gathering some more resources I think the INFPs in the room will love. So watch your inbox for the replay, for Lauren's gift tomorrow, and more to come.
You know, I'm also going to be sending out a little nudge about your September program. So if you're on my newsletter list, you will see that. But as Nicole says, like, you made your account, you're in the community. So you'll also get a little nudge. So pay attention to those little nudges. If today you were like, wow, this really opened up things for me, this could be the way you write your memoir. This could be the way you write your book of essays. So just kind of play with it in your mind. Let that take root. Let that seed get planted in there and let it unfold.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Thanks so much for the love and for joining today. It was amazing. So fun to do this together today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon somewhere.
Sounds great.